A terrifying but true story I experienced when I was 12. I moved to my dad's when I was 10 and didn't know anyone in the area except for the family my dad was friends with. Single mom with 3 kids. Luckily, there was a girl a couple years older than me, 12 at the time I met her. We got to know each other a little over the next couple years. We weren't close, but ended up having the same friends. One night, my friend Rob was hanging out with her and her younger brother. They happened to be in the house alone because my friend's mom was at work. This is where the story gets terrifying and sad. Her mother had been helping this one lady through work and got to know her fairly well. She found out her sister was in a mental institution and was let out recently. The night Rob is hanging out with my friend, they get a knock at the door. My friend thought it was just her mom and answered it without thinking. Rob wasn't supposed to be there and took off through the window to his house down the road. He never even thought twice about it. Turns out it wasn't her mom. It was the sister of the lady her mom was helping. She figured out through talking to her sister where her family lived and her mom's working schedule. She came in, and this is where I don't know the details, and I'm glad I don't. My friend's younger brother got away to the neighbors to call the police. The lady brutally murdered my friend a week from Christmas, decapitated her, and left her body naked in a bathtub. She then hid her head, to which the cops had to look through presents to find it. I wasn't allowed to go to her funeral. While I was deployed in Kosovo, my team did a lot of night missions that required us to cover a great deal of ground in a short period of time in order to make our extractions, all of it while remaining undetected by anyone in the areas that we would pass through. We would always seem to see odd things during the night, but nothing quite like this. During one of our recon missions, we had started by getting dropped off in a remote location to identify whether shipments of mortar rounds and mines were being moved through the area. Our extract was going to be before daybreak, and we needed to make it just over 17 kilometers. The terrain wasn't too overgrown, and we had good intel over the area, and it was either a full moon or close to it, so unless we encountered somebody, this was going to be an easy night. Our team was normally only 4 men, but we had the opportunity to make this a good training run for some of the new guys, and we took it on an extra 3. We still wanted to make sure we played it safe though, so I took rear security and, let's call him L, took the position just in front of me. We both worked great together and could easily manage to cover our team if needed. We moved about 10 kilometers through our mission area without finding anything, and had made good time doing it. At this point, we needed to start heading for our extraction point, which was located over a good-sized hill and then through an area that was near a village. We regrouped, did a count of people, ammo, and supplies, and then moved out. Being rear security, I was the last to move, and just as I was about to take off, I heard a noise in the trees, maybe 50 meters off. I turned and saw L looking at the direction as well. He had heard it too. Everyone else was still moving, since the new guys were in the middle and were not used to looking back every 20 meters to spot your security. We were getting left. Chances were that the noise was nothing more than a deer, but Elle and I started moving out using a 2-man bounding technique. We kept hearing a noise, so I told Elle to reach the team while I remained in place after our next bound. I found a place with cover and he bolted after the team. I heard the noise again, and then saw trees move about 15 meters in front of me. Everything stopped. 2 minutes went by with me being very quiet, controlling my breathing and watching my front and sides. Elle and my team were slowly making their way to engage whatever had been following us. They came up on the sides and surrounded the area I signaled to. Once in position, I moved up. Nothing. Not footprints, tracks, or any sign that something had been there. Cue the guys giving Elle and I a hard time for getting left alone and scared. We then proceeded to move out again. Again, I am the last to move, with Elle between myself and the next man to the front. This time, no noises when I step away. After about 2 kilometers, we come up to an orchard that we need to move through. The light from the moon was really bright and the trees were spaced, so we used them for cover as we stayed near the middle of the orchard. Just before I enter, I hear the noise again. This time, I thought I heard a little girl giggling, not something that my imagination would make up on its own. I was expecting wildlife, if anything. This time, Elle had taken off an additional 20 meters and turned to wait for me. I moved to my location and he moved out again. I was crouched next to a tree watching for anything. All of a sudden, the tree I was next to caught my attention. In the knots on the tree, I could see a face that looked like a person. As I squinted and looked more closely, a little girl's face appeared and she turned at me smiling, waving a little hand and giggles, then disappears back into the tree. I'm in absolute shock at this point, and there's not a chance in hell that I'm going back to my team to report what I just saw. So instead, I bolt and catch up to Elle and keep my mouth shut. Recognizing that I likely have lost my mind, I am not going to talk about anything. We hit our extract and leave. 2 weeks go by, and I am told that I am needed to provide security for a team of combat engineers who are going through an area I am familiar with. In the meantime, my team was going to be going through the area we were in 2 weeks ago where Elle and I got scared. Again, I never said a word to anybody about what I saw. In my mind, I am quite happy about not going back there. So I go out with the engineers and help them find a minefield that had been recently laid, and they take care of informing the village nearby while starting to blow the mines in place. I get back and I'm taken to see my commander and told thanks for the work. Feeling great, I head back to my barracks room and see that none of the guys are back yet. No sooner than taking my boots off, the door opens and I hear everyone laughing as they enter. Elle is not laughing and telling everyone to screw themselves. One of the other guys see me and blurts out, "Hey man, Elle says he isn't going on patrol with anymore in your favorite spot." I just grimace and wait for stuff to calm down. A couple of days later, Elle and I are out playing babysitter to some scouts. He says, "Hey, what did you see that night?" I shrug and say, "I don't know. Just my imagination getting the better of me." He then says something that sends chills up my spine. "I know you saw her. I saw her too. Tell me I'm not crazy." I felt numb and just said, "You're not crazy. Where did you see her?" He said, "Inside a tree." I had never given any information to Elle about what I saw or details that could have led for him to come up with the same conclusion. When I saw the girl in the tree, Elle was 40 meters away from my location and could not have even seen me looking at the tree. This story is from when I was a teenager and just started high school. My friends and I lived in a town that at the time had a lot of farmland. Near my house, a mall had recently been made, so my friends and I tried to ride our bikes to go shopping one day. We missed our turn and instead wound up on a long road with a small downhill slope that ran through some farmland. Having never been to the mall before, and never having been down this road, we assumed it would lead us to the mall. Instead, this road twisted and turned through thicker and thicker woodland after the farmland ended. At the end of the road, there was an abandoned old house that was visibly falling apart. My friends and I simply turned around and found our way to the mall that day, but we ended up coming back time and time again because the road was long and had just enough of a slope to make your bike go faster than you could pedal. One day we ended up daring each other to go into the house. Up until this point we had never gone in. My friends dared me to go in because I was pretty confident it would be safe if I was careful, so I did. It was a pretty empty house with some old moldy furniture. There were holes in a lot of the floor space. One Halloween Eve, we went back to the house to play hide and seek in the house for shits and giggles. We brought a few of our other friends and it was going to be a pretty fun time, so we thought. At first, everything was alright. We played a few rounds and some of the girls were sneaking away with their boyfriends off into the woods to make out. Eventually, I went into the building to hide again and noticed that while there was a ladder up to the attic, there was a hole I could climb through that led to a more secluded spot of the attic where I couldn't be seen as easily. I thought to myself, this is the perfect hiding spot, and climbed right on up. I had brought a flashlight, so I turned it on but kept the light low to the floor to not give away my position outside. I started looking around when I noticed a flash. It was the reflection from a pair of Nike shoes. Someone was already up here. I raised the light to see who else was already up here, but it wasn't one of my friends. He was dressed in torn up clothing. I only held the light over him for half a second before noping it out of the attic. It took me about 3 seconds to squeeze back through the hole, but the guy stood still, not even acknowledging that I had ever been near him. I told my friends and we all decided to stop playing and go outside to look at the attic. Nobody could see him through the hole, so we went to look at the window. We saw a guy with a crazed look in his eyes and we just bolted. One of us told their parents and they called the police. The police did not find the person. However, what they did find makes me glad I got out as soon as I did. The police found 7 fingers, with 3 being the right index finger and a decapitated human head mounted on the windowsill of the attic. We weren't looking at the guy I had seen, we were looking at a corpse. Apparently that house was being used by a gang, and it was so out of the way and unimportant that nobody ever went to it aside from us. What's more, they found a machete on a tarp where I had seen the guy, and several traps inside the house meant to catch intruders if they tried to sneak into the attic through the ladder. So, guy in the empty house, let's not meet.